was, an ex-Marine. He had a couple of their friends. They were out poaching, for the hide to make money. And
Right.
they shot at something. They thought it was like maybe a deer or something. And they hit it. Okay. And then they realized it was not what they thought it was. It was like a Bigfoot creature type of thing. So at that point, they were scared. So him and his two friends, were emptying their rifles into this creature. And it took a lot of hits, and then the thing would get back up again, and they nailed him again. And I don't know how many rounds went into this creature, according to the story. But the guy, at that point, they went to, in their car, they were worried, because they realized they killed something, and they started realizing maybe it was a human type of thing, and they were going to go to prison.
Right.
Well, they went back, in early morning, and then they saw another creature. And then the creature evidently was his mate. Well, then she responded by being aggressive towards him because they killed, her mate. And so they killed it. And then they went over there and recovered the bodies, and they realized they had the same organs as humans have. The woman had breasts, and all this stuff. The male had looked like a male in certain areas. And they were really, scared, or to the point where they buried the corpses, and they vowed not to talk about it. Well, this guy decided after many years that he wanted to get it out. So he called up Art Bell's show, as a guest and gave his story, and supposedly gave Art, the location of where they buried it, or buried them. And, that's about all I know about it. But I don't know. I really, honestly, like I said, I got in trouble last week when I said this. I think it's going to take a hunter out there seeing a Bigfoot and killing it. And then I hate to say that, but at least if they kill one, okay? I mean, look what we've done for the name of science through the years, right? Experimenting with people, all this stuff. At least if they kill a Bigfoot and then they can recover the body, then the scientists, the authorities, all can make a decision what it was and what it is. And that'll end, all this rumors.
Yep. Yeah, that would do a lot. Back in about 85, I was telling a friend last night, I got a call from a Bigfoot, the top Bigfoot researcher. And he said, hey, we need to raise $2,000. I said, well, what for? Well, we got to get a helicopter, go up into British Columbia, I believe it was. And because these hunters were up there on the river and they saw a bear and shot it. And when they went up to it, they realized it was a big Sasquatch. And they were like terrified. Oh, my Lord, what have we done? So they went into town, rented a backhoe, came out and buried the thing like 3 feet deep or something, and told a few people, I guess he told this guy. So this guy was saying, look, if we get up there now in the wintertime, dig down and get to this thing, we can get hair, flesh, something, because when things thaw out, the bears are going to get it. So what happens to these Bigfoots? Well, maybe bears eat them.
Well, there's other things out there in the woods besides bears that would eat them.
Yeah, that's true. There are a lot of things eat them. In fact, there are birds. You'll have a bunch of vultures in there and clean them right up, and other, even cows. Sometimes a lot of calves get a bone of another cow stuck in their throat because they're trying to get the calcium off of it, which tells the rancher, you need to put some calcium in their feed or something. But so, yeah, that's not so strange. I would not shoot one, but I know a guy here in Central Texas. He said, I think I can tell you this. So he told me he was out on a person's ranch, heard this humming, crept up over a hill so he wouldn't get shot by the hunter, creeps up over the hill, looks over here, and here's this big about an 8 or 9 foot tall Bigfoot sitting on the ground by this little pond, humming under a tree. And eventually the thing gets up and goes. He turns, I think he turned left, made a footprint in the edge of the little pond there that was kind of soft, and he said it was about 16 inches long. And he said he passed under this tree he was sitting under, and he raised the limbs up out of his way. He said, I went over there, and I could not even touch the limb, extending my arm all the way up. This guy's about 6 feet tall. So he's reaching up some nearly 7 or 8 feet, couldn't touch the limb, so the animal had to be, the Bigfoot had to be at least 8.5 or 9 feet tall.
Uh-huh.
So he goes back, he tells the owner, he said, you won't believe what I just saw. He says, yeah, we know. We watch them with the binoculars, with the scopes on the rifle. He says, don't tell anybody. We're afraid somebody's going to come back out and shoot them. So my consensus is that most people who have been around them don't want to shoot them. They're so human-like that they feel terrible about shooting one. So, there's something there. It's not like seeing a bear. Most people don't have any compunction about shooting a bear. It's just an animal. But bears don't do human-like things.
No.
Except eat honey.
Yeah, that, again, too, I can see that. And I'm just wondering through the years how many Bigfoot have been shot, from settlers, from, people, hunters, and realize they shot something that was very human looking in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
And they just left it there.
I know over half a dozen.
I mean, you have everything from coyotes, you have mountain lions, cougars, all these places out in British Columbia, for example. I mean, and even people, hunters, when they get killed out there, out in the forest, or something happens to them, they die, right? When they find the remains, they don't find the skeleton there. They find parts here. 20, 30 feet, 100 feet away, they find, maybe the head, they find part of the legs, the arms. It's because the predators, go out there and drag off different parts of the body. That would be the same thing probably for a Bigfoot.
That brings up another story. I've had 2 or more accounts now where people in areas where there would be particularly Bigfoot, they find these areas of bone piles. And they see, they go, well, wait a minute, this is not a dead animal. These are all kinds of animal bones, and they're all cleaned up, and they're just, jaws and femurs and tibias of several different kinds of animals, a lot of deer. And it's like these things, when they eat them, they clean the bones up totally. Like a cat can lick a bone clean.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have that rough tongue, they can lick meat off a bone. So why do they pile the bones up in a pile? Why don't they just throw them anywhere? It's almost human. Even humans, I don't know. We don't really do that. Sometimes we have trash piles where you throw things, but if people are living out in the woods and eating deer and stuff, I think the average man is going to drop the bone where it is or throw it a couple of feet. He's not going to make a pile of them. Well, so why do they do that? I mean, why are they doing that?
Well, I know prehistoric men, though, used it, when they would find, the remains of the, where they had their camps or whatever, they would be areas where they've killed whatever their prey, and whatever they did with it, the bones went into like this area, a pile. But then again, if these creatures are moving around different areas and not one area, then I guess maybe if they're eating whatever, it's going to be spread everywhere.
Well, there's also the thing of, and this may be an explanation to it. You throw bones out in front of your teepee, coyotes are going to come up. Cougars are going to come up. Well, you don't really want that. So you throw those bones at a safe distance away from where you are. Maybe that's what the Bigfoot's doing. They don't want to have to contend with a pack of wolves or cougars, so they just pile the bones up somewhere and let the animals have those, and they stay away from where they are. Maybe it's just that. Like you say, people pile up bones, and maybe that's why. That's to keep them from coming up too close to your camp.
Well, at this convention you were at on Bigfoot, I mean, when you left, I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, what are the general population thinking about Bigfoot? And the people that are into it, I mean, what's going on? I mean, are we making any headway?
Well, the title of my conference back last October was "They Are Real," And at the conference, Harriet McFeely's conference, it was a consensus, and it wasn't a forced consensus. They exist. They are real. We know a lot about them. We have opinions about them, but nobody's quite sure what they are. But it's worth investigating because more stuff comes out all the time. There were some people there that had photographs of wood piles where these somebody has taken trees that are 3 or 4 inches across and breaking them off, which is not easy to do. A man couldn't do it, and piling them up like asterisk, like you cross things in with pickup sticks. They're making designs with them, and they'll bend them over and do things with them like that. Like the Indians used to bend trees over to culture a limb to make it like a bow. But there are a lot of these things that they're piling these things up. Don Monroe was there again with his braided horse manes. My brother was a rancher, and we grew up on horses. I never saw a horse's mane tangled up in a braid. Never. They get a little bit tangled up with the wind, get a cockleburr in there, but they don't get braided. They don't get woven into strands and knots and things and bows with wire woven into them and ribbon. That's like a human, and that happens in the middle of the night in the barn. Happens to feral horses. So Don had a lot of that stuff there. There was another fellow that had been analyzing Ron Moorhead's recordings, his Bigfoot sounds recordings, and he was just explaining that there's some kind of a language there. We're not sure what it is. Some of it sounds like monkeys. Some of it sounds like screech owls. Other sounds like you're hitting a horn and it lets out air like a big huff sound. And then these sounds that I said when I first heard it, I said, that sounds like Chinese. Sounds like Chinese men talking to each other with that same staccato type, pattern.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so these are not fake. They've been examined thoroughly. There was an Indian couple there from, I'm not sure, there's a tribal name I hadn't heard from Canada. They did a little story, and the lady did a dance. And they explained a lot about what they are to them, and they know them. They don't deny them. They're not hiding from anybody. And then he was talking about this other one, the little people, or the little Bigfoots, and I'd never heard that. So that was fascinating, but they had a name for it, and I can't even pronounce it. But okay, there's a whole new other area of research now. Are the miniature Bigfoots? What in the world is that? Unfortunately, the weather was so bad that nobody could get in. There was only, I think, a maximum of 100 of us actually could make it there. I left the following day, and I'm glad I did because, man, the storms began blowing in. And you see what's happening in Nebraska right now. It is being washed away.
Oh, yeah.
It's tragic what's happening up there. And, it makes you wonder, well, Bigfoot's out there, he's going to have to go somewhere. And some of those fields are miles wide. And if you don't get out of there, you'll drown or die of exposure. So is that going to force them into the edges of some of these cities or high grounds?
It could.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Now, Joe, we're out of time. I'm going to have to bring you on here again in about a month, and we'll have to continue at this if you don't mind.
Well, I'll try to learn some more stuff.
Okay, now, why don't you tell people about your book and how they can, get a hold of it?
I've got a couple of books that we're putting out. One is called Giants Against Evolution. Half of it's about giant people all over the world, and what I thought were viable reports. Others that I just want people to know about, do further research. Half the book is on giant animals, giant bugs, giant everything, to show that the old idea that I was taught that things start off simple and complex is just not true. In the fossil record, it's not true. It's almost the other way around. The big stuff starts off and gets smaller. That's what it looks like. So, Giants Against Evolution, and you can order it at my website, which is mountblanco.com, V